something I wanted to do because there's been tons of people asking me about it today. Upcoming Forbidden and Limited list update for Master Duel, and it was a pretty big one. This is not a blind reaction at all. This is something that I've looked at already, of course, because the announcement was like a couple days ago, and I've already seen it. But I still wanted to go over it together with you guys because it's a relatively big one, and it always tends to be like that after the World Championship and after the Duelist Cup that happens right after the World Championship. We tend to get a little bit of a bigger update to the format. So let's talk about whether this one is that and whether it's good or not. So let's just go through it in the order that they have it in the game here, which is cards to be forbidden first. And they are, honestly, in my opinion, they're pretty good decisions overall. We've got Perla-Rhino, we've got Ibli, and we've got Jaugen. So let's go through these one by one. Perla-Rhino, in my opinion, is to be expected because of how well Tearlaments did at not only last year's World Championship, but even all the way up until this year's World Championship. And the fact that they just, I think they just don't want to kill it completely. Otherwise, they would have just banned Kid Kalos, right? So like from a Tearlaments player perspective, I think you can be happy that they didn't murder the deck, because I think you can still play Tearlaments without Perla-Rhino. It loses a lot of power though. Because one thing you have to realize, I think, is that Perla-Rhino was not a random one-of in your deck. There was a lot of ways to find this card, right? Like there was, you could have Foolish Burial Goods to send Trivikarma. You could randomly mill Trivikarma or Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. Like there was a bunch of ways to find this card, not just hard drawing the random one-of. So like, that is a significant hit to the deck. And that's gonna matter. It's gonna make the deck weaker, but I think it's not gonna make the tier cards completely unusable. So I'm a fan of this hit. I think it's fine. I think it's deserved, and I don't think it is too harsh, at least from my first impression. Ibli is a wonderful hit. Honestly, I haven't heard anyone complain about this hit at all. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's a hit I wish we've gotten in the TCG a while ago, and we still haven't. Ibli is never used for good. Ibli is always used for crazy things and stupid locks and all that kind of stuff, so I'm happy that they got rid of it. The same is true for Jaugen. I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, Jaugen, they should have just hit Sanctifier, to which I say, yes, they should have. I agree with you. They should have hit Sanctifier. Same as in the TCG. On the other hand, I'm never going to complain about Jaugen being banned, because Jaugen, similar to Ibli, has never been used in a good way. Like that card is... that card should also, like, honestly, Sanctifier and Jaugen should probably be both on this thing, right? Because the thing about Jaugen is that it's not only used in Branded. I think that's the main reason they're hitting it, but it is not the only deck that uses Jaugen. Like, Jaugen has already seen play in, like, stun decks for a while. So, like, I think hitting Jaugen is fine. They should still also hit Albion, but, like, Jaugen being on here is nothing I'll complain about. So, overall, I think those are fine bans. Cards to be limited, we have Poplar and we have Fossil Dyna Pachycephalo. Fossil Dyna, I love it. I love it. I think it's a great limit. It would have been an even better ban. I think it's about time that they're actually addressing stun directly and not just like cards that are being played in a lot of different decks. Like, I mean, cards like Skill Drain, Rivalry, and There Can Be Only One, and so on and so forth, were also cards that should be hit on the list, right? But like, those were cards that saw plays here and there in like all kinds of different decks. I'm happy we're seeing hits to specifically stun. Yeah, like get these floodgates out of here. I'm happy with it. People say like there's replacements for it, but that is true for most floodgates. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be hit, right? Like if there's a card that replaces Fossil Dyna, then I guess we'll talk about that card next, right? Poplar to 1, I think is Poplar to 1 is fine in my opinion. It's now at 1 in every single format basically. Like it's at 1 in the TCG, at 1 in the OCG, at 1 in Master Duel. I think overall, and we're going to look at the semi-limits in a moment, I think overall Snake Eyes, specifically Snake Eye Fire King, gets away from this list relatively unharmed, which I think is not ideal. I think they should have hit it a little bit harder. Because the only other hit to Snake Eyes is Fire King High Avatar Kirin to 2, which I guess segues us into the semi-limits. So the only changes to Snake Eyes Fire King is 1 Poplar, 2 Kirin, which in my opinion is not enough to really handle the deck, considering how dominant it's been for like such a long time. I think they should have hit it a little bit harder. And for example, Kirin is a card that I only played 2 copies of in my Worlds deck, right? Like Kirin was not even a staple at 3. Some people will prefer 3. Some people were cutting it down to 2. It just goes to show that you didn't necessarily need 3 Kirin for the deck to function. Like there was already an argument of, do you play 2 or 3? And the same is actually true for Poplar. I was debating cutting Poplar down to 1 in my Worlds testing, which also goes to show that the deck can definitely function with 1 Poplar. Now, a lot of people are playing 2 Poplar and 3 Kirin for good reason, so hitting those cards is still like warranted, but I don't think it's sufficient, rather, for this deck. So like, this list will by no means kill Snake Eyes. Specifically, Snake Eye Fire King is still pretty strong. And then Yubel, we've got Semi-Limit on Phantom, Dark Beckoning Beast, and Opening. Once again, I like those hits because all 3 of these cards were usually being played at 3 for good reason, right? Like most Yubel decks played 3 Phantoms, most Yubel decks played 3 Dark Beckoning Beast and 3 Openings. So semi-limiting all of them does matter, but it still isn't enough to really take Yubel away from the top tier position, I think. Phantom of Yubel to 2 is a good change, should have been limited, but like whatever. It's eventually gonna happen. I'm not disappointed by these hits. I personally would have hit the deck a little bit harder maybe, but it's like fine-ish, right? Like you can replace the consistency of Beckoning Beast and Opening. 2 Phantom of Yubel is probably the most meaningful hit here because it actually impacts the grind game of the deck. Like that one's fine. So yeah, both Yubel and Snake Eye Fire King get away okay from this list, right? They don't go completely untouched, but they also could have been hit much harder for my liking. But it's all right. Gold Sarcophagus to 2 is kind of cool. Some decks can make use of it. I think that card's fine at 2. It could even go to 3 at some point in the future. We'll see what kind of decks can use this card. For like we have Ritual Beast coming up eventually. I don't think they use it though. Do they use it for banishing the new Lara? They might. I don't know. You can use it in Branded. You can use it in Thunder Dragon. You can use it in like Malice eventually. Like it's fine. Yeah. And then we've got some Unlimits, which are some are more relevant, some are less relevant. Thunder Dragon Colossus going from I think 1 to 3, or was it at 2 already? I don't even know. And the reason I don't know is because Thunder Dragon Colossus has to either be at 0 or it doesn't matter where he is, right? Because like if it's at 1, all of the combo decks that make it play 1 anyways. The only deck that needs more than 1 Colossus is pure Thunder Dragon. And guess what? Pure Thunder Dragon is nowhere. So if you want Colossus to be in the game, you might as well put it to 3 so that you can maybe play pure Thunder Dragon. But like, if this card is at 1 or 2 or 3, does not matter for every single deck except for pure Thunder Dragon, right? So like, it's fine, it's whatever. Water Enchantress of the Temple is also fine in my book. In modern Yu-Gi-Oh, the adventure engine has been power crept, I feel like, so it's understandable that they're putting it back to 3. Change of Heart is cool in my opinion, especially in like a best of 1 environment. It's really hard to use this card, right? Because you never know, am I going to go first or am I going to go second? And so Change of Heart, whether it was at 1 or 2, it was probably at 2 beforehand, I think, hasn't really had much impact. So I can't really complain about that card. I think it's fine. Eradicator was a stupid limit to begin with, I think, because that's like a card that was always searchable. Like it's a highly searchable card. So like people were only playing 1 anyways. It's kind of similar to Colossus. Like it's a card that you either ban it or you can just leave it at 3, because no one plays like 3 copies of Eradicator to hard draw it. It was always like, oh, I'm gonna like play it in Labyrinth to search it off of Lady. Like, you know, like yeah, you can trap trick it, but honestly, I don't remember if I've ever seen someone play 2 Eradicators. It's always 1 for the Lady Ku Clock play, right? Like I've not seen people play multiples. And then like honestly, Eradicator at the moment in Master Duel isn't even like the craziest thing you can get off of Lady. Like in my personal liking, I would like this card to be banned, so I'm not a huge fan of the direction we're going, right? We're going from 1 to 3, but like you can't really deny that Eradicator does not really see play at the moment. So like, I guess. Chaos Space to 3 is cool. Dragon Link has kind of been making a return with the return of the baby dragons and stuff like that. So like Chaos Space, I think, is relevant to an extent, and I kind of like it. I kind of like the fact that they're lifting cards that have the potential to actually see play. Right? I don't like it when they bring back cards way too late. Right? When it's just no chance that it's playable again. So like Chaos Space coming back right now in a world where not Thunder Dragon, but like Dragon Link has kind of been seeing some play recently. I think is fine. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, overall, I think there's a lot of cool things here. I am happy about the Floodgate hits to Ibli, Jaugen, and Fossil Dyna. Those make me very happy. I think the Pearl Rhino hit is justified. My only critique here is that I personally would have hit Snake Eyes and Yubel a little bit harder, just a little bit harder, to give us a little more of a refresh on the format, right? Like just a little bit hard, like one extra hit each would have been perfect for me, right? Or like limit the Phantom of Yubel instead of semi-limit, something like that. Yeah, that's my take on it. But overall, I think it's fine, right? We have more updates happening more frequently in Master Duel. So overall, for this being a list that we expect a follow-up list in a month, I think this is fine. I'm not touching Yubel with this list personally. It'll feel too inconsistent in my book. I mean, if I'm looking at... Let me see if I have a Yubel deck somewhere. I haven't updated it in a while. Where's my Yubel? Let's see. Like, you really think this is too inconsistent? Like, you really think like this was fine? But like this is not anymore. I don't know, man. I think you're fine. Like, I think it's fine. I don't even have 1-for-1 in here. Like, you can add 1-for-1 as another starter as well. I think Yubel is definitely still fine. And then for Snake Eyes, where's my World's Snake Eye deck? Like, my World's Snake Eye deck literally loses this. I was already so close to doing this instead anyways. I was already considering 2 Ponix, 1 Poplar over 1 Ponix, 2 Poplars. It was like a last minute decision to do this, right? But I could have very easily done that as well. So like this deck is also completely fine. Tearlaments does take a significant hit, right? Because like Tearlaments, you have to take out this, which means you probably also want to... I mean, do you take out Trivi Karma or not? I guess so, right? But like Goods also is weird now, because the only real target for Goods is Saliek when you start. Like everything else is suboptimal. So like, I don't know. 40 card tier maybe is okay still. I don't know, dude. You can still play it is the thing. You definitely can still play it because you do still have Kikolos. So yeah. What version, I don't know exactly. You can like try to play a more high rolly grass version, which is also completely fine. But like losing Pearl Rhino will... I think losing Pearl Rhino will not hurt in terms of your consistency or anything like that. I think it'll hurt just like you'll notice it when you're playing, right? Like you'll notice that very often you just won't have that extra point of interruption when you're going first, or that free pop when you're going second. Like it's gonna be a real pain to deal with certain situations now because you won't have the Pearl Rhino. Because like with Foolish Burial Goods, Pearl Rhino, and the random chance of milling Trivi Karma or Rainbow Bridge, like you had access to Pearl Rhino so consistently, right? So like you're gonna lose out a lot from actually playing. Like it's not gonna look as bad in your deck builder, but then when you're playing, you're really gonna notice, damn, like I used to have Pearl Rhino like 40-50% of my games, and now I just never have it. Like it's gonna make a big difference.